You are listening to the Moments in Marketing podcast and its host, Dima Mackey, where fellow traditional and digital marketers share their stories along the way. This is the place where we will dive deeper into some of the strategies, processes, and ways to excel in your digital career. We all know that success stories do not come easy and overnight, so we'll try to get to the bottoms of it. Whether you're looking for how to get into the digital marketing industry, or launch your own project, or just want to learn from someone's experience, this is a great place to be. Stay tuned and enjoy.
All right, Andri, thanks again for joining me today to the Moments in Marketing podcast episode number 2. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, Dima.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited about our conversation. And today we're going to be talking about Amazon store business, that the one you built. But yes, so kind of slowly to transition to the questions. There are many ways to start a conversation today, but I'll kick it off from the beginning. So I'm sure my audience would love to learn more about yourself. So do you mind sharing a couple of details of who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. My name is Andri Sadlak. I am an immigrant entrepreneur, specifically e-commerce entrepreneur. So I love all things online brand building and selling physical products online. To give a little bit of recap, I've just sold my very first e-commerce business for $500,000. It was primarily Amazon FBA based business, and I'm working on starting the next one.
Cool. So you mentioned that you started Amazon brand product business, and how did you learn about it, and what was the key turning point for yourself? And maybe if you can go a little bit further and talk what you did before it. How did your career look like before?
Sure, yeah. Well, it's funny because it's not related to e-commerce or marketing whatsoever. I'll go way back to when I moved to Canada, because I'm originally not from Canada. I'm originally from Ukraine. But when I moved to Canada in 2013, I studied international business. That's basically the easiest way to immigrate. And then my first job was in logistics, but more specifically in luxury relocations. And then after that, I was always dreaming of living on the West Coast, in Vancouver specifically. That was my goal. I didn't land quite in Vancouver right away, but I did find a job in Kelowna, BC. The job was probably the best job I've ever had. It was in real estate development. I enjoyed the challenges, but it is quite a traditional business, so you have to stay in the city, build the relationships, develop your skills and expertise specifically in that location, in that area, which I wouldn't say I really enjoyed, because I wanted to be location dependent. I wanted to have that time freedom. And if you're in more traditional setting, in working 9-to-5 office job, it's pretty hard to live that international freedom kind of lifestyle.
I see.
And for me to make it happen, I started looking for people who have done it before, and I found someone in my circle who knew somebody else who was already selling on Amazon. And I got a chance to talk to them, so that was the first real conversation that convinced me that it is possible, it's real, it's happening, and here's what it takes, So I was able to reach out to that person from time to time, get some basic questions answered, and that led me through the research phase and landed my first products that I did launch on Amazon in late 2017. And 3 years later, I sold it for $500,000. That's kind of my story in short.
Yeah, long story short, right? But we'll try to decipher it a little bit more. But yeah, cool. So it was a complete shift for you, and yeah, that's pretty remarkable, the result that you've achieved. And so talking about your product, so can you tell us a little bit more what it is, and how did you decide to go with this product? Like, kind of from start to finish, how did you research it, and then how did you actually develop it, and kind of that stuff?
Absolutely. My research wasn't very sophisticated back in the day, but I did look at quite a few products, probably like hundreds of products, and I was always narrowing it down to the ones that made the most sense. So first of all, I was looking at some basics like demand, competition, just to see where there's opportunity that I could come in, jump in, and be different and still win. And one of those products, one of the top three in my ranking at least, was the scratch off map. And that's something I chose to improve upon and launch as my own brand product. Definitely not my idea. Somebody else came up with that before. I believe it was someone in UK, but I'm not 100% sure. But I did make my own design. I did develop it from the get, like my own design of the world map, my own design of the US map later on, and I manufactured it in Ukraine, contrary to most of my competition, who's made in China. That's how I started. How I researched, hard to explain, but I was basically looking at a few products that kind of made sense numbers wise. So there was enough demand. It was fairly strong in terms of growing, but and competition wasn't that crazy. Like number of reviews were not like through the sky, not like thousands of reviews yet. So I thought, oh, in these few spaces, I could make a difference. But when I looked at the map, I was like, oh, this is actually me. That's something I can do. That's something I can see improving and making it much better than what's out there. And it's probably coming back to my design background. I studied architecture,
Oh, nice.
so
Didn't know
I
that.
knew that, yeah, like I knew that design-wise, I can make a much better product. And then since I'm quite a perfectionist, quality-wise too, I spent probably 7 to 9 months, about around that, to find the right manufacturer, someone I'd be proud to work with, and the results of the quality of the products would be something I wouldn't mind sharing with everybody I know, And yeah, that was basically the goal, create the best freaking scratch off map in the world. And I think I achieved that, and that's probably why it did go well. And I did have substantial margins throughout the time of extreme competition. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I see. I've seen those a lot on Amazon scratch off maps, and yeah, I've seen yours, and it looks actually amazing. It's just not an ad,
Thank
it's
you.
just my personal opinion. And yeah, actually, going back a little bit about the research, I'm also sort of working in this field, and my background is
Mhm.
in data analytics, and I work as an SEO supervisor now. So I'm just curious, were there any tools if I want to replicate your strategy that helped you to, to look at the reviews, like average prices, maybe if you can
Oh,
name
yes,
them and like talk a little bit more
absolutely.
specifically about that process?
Yeah, there are lots of tools that are super instrumental when you look at the numbers. And what they do is they scrape the data from Amazon that you wouldn't see as a visitor. And specifically, you can see approximate numbers for sales. So you could see revenues per product when you do keyword research. So let's say you look for scratch off map, you turn on that tool, it'll tell you like a list of products that are indexed and ranked for that keyword. Uh, in whatever way you want, you can sort it. So for example, you can sort it by whoever sells the most dollars wise, or whoever sells the most units wise, or whoever has the most reviews. So that data is pretty helpful when you're researching your initial ideas, because then you can see, oh, this is actually quite a big market, or this market is dominated by top two sellers. So people are probably brand sensitive and they only buy
Hmm.
from these two major brands, and everybody else doesn't do that well, right? So I used a tool called, I think back in the day I used Viral Launch. Viral Launch. Yeah, hard to explain why they call it that way, but that's what it is. The other tool I used, and that's what I use right now, is Helium 10. They're similar. They give you pretty much the same data. It differs slightly, so I'm not sure who's more precise, but both of them claim that they are the most precise. So it's nice to have a couple of those just to compare.
So you
But
can just
generally speaking,
cross-reference like the results and may make
exactly.
a
Yeah,
better educated decision, right?
right. Yeah, but they're still pretty close. I would even use one and be happy with the preciseness.
And do you need to pay for those tools? Are they expensive or is it
Yeah, I
free?
think for Helium 10 I pay like $100 a month, something like that.
Oh, wow,
But it's a
that's
complete suite of tools that you use moving forward as well. So it gives you lots of data once you start selling. That is very helpful too. Like they can give us like profit numbers, uh, keyword research tools that you can always work on, because it's a constant work in progress. If you want to improve,
that's for
they pretty
sure.
much give you everything you need.
Cool. Yeah. And now talking a little bit more about the product and manufacturers. Before you said that you went with a Ukrainian manufacturer, but I'm just curious, like a lot of people I've heard they're doing business with China. And did you have any
Yes.
experience with, trying to find a Chinese supplier, and how did it go for you?
I did. That was my initial plan. So I reached out to Chinese manufacturers first when I decided scratch off maps going to be my spiel. And I received some samples that obviously you pay for samples, but once I received the samples, I was not very happy. And I was coming back and forth with them, trying to improve it, requesting more samples, but it was still not at the level I wanted. And also the biggest challenge I had with them was not only quality, but something that's touchy for some people. Chinese said that I need to change my design for the world map and show Taiwan, Hong Kong as Chinese, and also outline that I think it's South Chinese Sea with huge lines showing everyone who looks at my map that this is actually China. I wasn't 100% sold on that because I looked at the United Nations maps and they didn't show it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's a lot of controversy around those areas. So at that point, I started thinking about making that product in a different country because when I looked at my competition
Mm-hmm.
available on Amazon at that time, everybody was making it in China and adjusting their design the way these manufacturers requested. And that's pretty much how I ended up with Ukraine, my home country, as a manufacturer. I basically reached out to my contacts because there's no such thing as Alibaba.com or something like that for Ukraine or anyone else. And I found someone who's making these maps in Ukraine. I looked at the quality, I was impressed compared to everything I've seen in China. It was like very well done, and they use a different technology, which I find much more premium. Um, and they were able to make the design I needed, no adjustments. So I was basically able to claim on my listings that I'm the only United Nations compliant map design, which I think helps a lot.
Wow, that's interesting to know. Is it fair to say that it's one of the key differentiating points that you had against the competition, or were there any
I
others?
think so. Yeah, I believe that it's one of the key differentiation points I had. The other one was quality. Like the poster was much thicker. Paper itself, like all the materials are from Europe, like
Mm-hmm.
Belgium, France, Switzerland, Sweden. So the only thing is they put everything together in Ukraine, which also is a good thing because generally speaking, they care about quality. Yeah, I was saying, hey, it's made in Europe, it's United Nations compliant, and the images themselves showed how great it is design-wise and quality-wise. So I feel like all of these things together made it possible for me to sell the product for more than everybody else.
Awesome. And yeah, I think you mentioned also that you have a design background and you worked from 7 to 9 months, if I'm not mistaken, to develop a design. So actually, did you do
Yeah.
it yourself, or can you outsource it? Did you have anyone like helping you with the design? And another question would be,
Mhm.
did you go actually to Ukraine to see the manufacturing facilities, or did you manage it from Canada overseas?
Yeah, I managed everything from Canada. I had a 9 to 5 job for the
Mm-hmm.
first like 1.5 years, so everything was done in my free time. So all the time I had outside of that demanding work that I was doing. But to answer the first question, I was overseeing the design process,
Mm-hmm.
so I was the mastermind behind it. But I would hire people for different sections of the work. I think in total I had about, I think, to be fair, like 5 people involved
Mm-hmm.
in the design of my maps, both world map and US map. And there are,
Just in the designs, right?
yes, just in the design. So someone would be a graphic designer, someone would be a cartographer, someone would be a new graphic designer, someone would be more like illustrator with their own view on the design that would make some improvements too. And we're talking about like such a detail-oriented work. There's some things that if I start talking about them, that it'll take like hours to explain why it's
Mm-hmm.
so much better. So nobody really cares, but I know that I put so much attention to detail to every little thing, to like every flag, every city, every outline, every state. Because even the design itself, I feel like, is made to cater travelers
Mm-hmm.
in the best possible way. So the map itself is built specifically to make it easy and enjoyable for you to scratch off where you've been.
But generally speaking, even from my experience, like with any other product that I buy or use, it's like the details that what matter, right? So it's really
Yes.
you can feel this touch when you buy a product and it's like perfect and you enjoy using it and you probably don't think about like a lot of
Yeah, I don't
stuff
know
like
why.
what did go in the background of creating it, but you know somehow like subconsciously you feel it that that product
Exactly.
was created with love, and I kind of feel that something that you were doing along the way, right?
Yeah, it's just like I'm looking at a MacBook Pro. I know that if I open it up,
Yeah.
there's like I need to fix something. It's beautiful inside too, you know?
Yeah, that the same feeling I have the moment I switched from Windows back, I don't know, 4 years ago to MacBook. Yeah, it's a totally different story.
Right.
And yeah, we just touched a little bit about like the people around you and who was helping you along the way.
Mhm.
And I know, like, kind of research you a little bit, right? And you have an Amazon brand store, you have your website, you have social media. And yeah, I'm just curious, like, did you have any help with that? And how did you manage all those channels? And how did they contribute into your overall business, sort of?
Right. Yeah, there's something I've done that most Amazon sellers don't do. I would call it community building. So I created a Facebook group for travelers, and I created it before I had the product. So once I decided, oh, this is going to be my direction, right now it's a map, but I'm going to be about traveling somehow. I created this Facebook group. I called it Travel and Civilization, which kind of rhymes with the name of the actual brand, Travelization. And I invited all my friends that I knew who loved traveling. And everyone I met, if I could see from their conversation, they enjoy traveling. They're explorers, global citizens, whatever, same values. I would invite them too. And I was also part of other communities online related to traveling and being a global citizen in all regards. And I'd make friends online that way, add them as a friend on Facebook, invite them to the group. So it took me some time to build that initial, probably a few hundred people, before I started talking about the idea of launching that product.
Hmm.
And I already started working on it. So I think I built that launch platform for myself that was very helpful. I could get their opinion on stuff. I could ask them, hey, do you like this or this better? Like I was working on map designs, and I knew that, oh, someone's selling them in black color, someone selling them in more traditional like blue color because the ocean's blue, which I didn't really buy myself, and someone selling them in more classic way, just white, very clean, minimalist. And I personally really like the white background, and
Hmm.
that's why the map I have in my office is the white background. But I did a poll in that Facebook group, and people voted, like most of them voted, that they would enjoy having the black one. So that was very helpful because later on I did launch the black one first, and I'm happy that I did. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have made it.
Right.
uh, yeah, so that was helpful. And also Instagram, I created that Instagram page for the community. I created a Pinterest page because it's a home decor item. You better be on Pinterest. There's a lot of traffic.
True.
It's quite an underutilized tool. And what else did I have? Oh, I was collecting emails from my website. Outside of Amazon, I also had that website, and I would send some people from my community there. I would write blogs. My wife would help me from time to time to write blogs because we knew that it takes a lot of time to create SEO optimized web resource. And slowly but surely, I was collecting some emails from people who were into this business. And later, when I started selling, people who bought from me before. So, yeah, I feel like it's a snowball effect. And it's important if you want to build a proper brand and not just take advantage of one marketplace
Mhm.
and fully depend on it.
Right. So yeah, it's really interesting how you, in the early steps of the project, you created the group and you sort of used it as a data source to make like better informed decisions, like
Yeah,
by listening to people interested in like in this topic theme and gather influential feedback, I guess, that informed your uh,
right.
business decisions. And yeah, now we talk about your website, social strategy, and actually, I think really important part is the investments of this project, right? So, can you maybe talk a little bit more about numbers? So, let's say how much money did you need to create the first prototypes, or
Hmm.
any suggestion to in you person that wants to enter and build some like simple Amazon product, what would that look like?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's a very popular question. People ask how much money do you need to start on Amazon? It's hard because it's niche specific, so it's hard to guess, but you can calculate it. Basically, you can look at the sales of that product you decide to launch. So let's say you use Helium 10 or Viral Launch or any of these tools. There are so many different tools that can give you the same data, and you can see how many units on average people sell. People who are on page one, for example, sell, and you're like, okay, if I'm targeting to be there, I'll be selling at least an average if I'm launching aggressively. So I need 2.5 to 3 months worth of inventory. So you can calculate that. So you go back to the manufacturer, you get the quote, you look at how much you're going to pay for 1 unit, multiply by the number of units for 3 months supply, and that's your inventory investment. Then you also need to set aside some money for advertising. So some people do giveaways, so they would give products for free for people to for two reasons. One, if you make them use the right link or do the search, find, buy method, so search on Amazon for the right keywords, find your product, put it in cart, and buy it, then Amazon sees that as how do I explain it? It helps with ranking. So Amazon sees that, if someone's looking for scratch of map, they end up buying travelization, then whoever else is searching for scratch of map, we better show travelization higher up because it's relevant, right? And the other reason some people do giveaways, which also costs money and adds to your budget, is for review collection. And nowadays you can't incentivize reviews, so you can't say, hey, I'll give you this product for free, you leave a review. Amazon can suspend you for that if they find it out. But what my network usually does, they give away products through some online marketing channels, and they ask people at the end, how do you like it? And if people say, oh, I love it, here's what I would improve, or it's just perfect, they ask them at that point, would you mind submitting this as a review? So that way I feel it's clean because you're not really making it a condition that you need to submit a review. And a lot of people are willing to help small businesses with a review if they really like the product. So in my case, to answer your question about numbers, I think I launched with about 10 grand overall. My first order was 1,000 units, and I think the cost of product was about $6 or something like that, plus shipping. So shipping is, I don't know, at that point, I think I paid like 2 grand or something like that, maybe 1.5.
For shipping?
Yeah.
Oh.
And I shipped part of it air and part of it sea. Sea is much cheaper, probably like 1/3 of air price. Depending on the time too, it's seasonal. Like Q4 is usually more expensive. So if you're shipping in November or December, it's going to be more expensive than if you're shipping in February, March, April, because there's much more demand and freight forwarders take advantage of that. What are the costs out there? Oh, and there's PPC. So another part of the launching process is using Amazon's advertising engine, which is somehow similar to Google. I think that's how they started. They pretty much replicated it, the Google search and PPC system, but it's now its own beast. Like they added so many different features that Google doesn't have. So if you want to launch successfully, I'd recommend going into PPC aggressively. So finding well, there are two ways to do it, but before I get into too much details, it's manual or automatic campaign. Usually I would start with automatic campaign, and then based on the data I collect from it, I would create some manual campaigns to have pay-per-click advertising within Amazon when I just launch. And as soon as you have a few reviews, then PPC becomes much more profitable because people see a little bit of social proof there, and they are more willing to buy a product with a few reviews when they see that ad. And yeah, no, another important point before I forgot, so people don't feel like you need to give away products to receive reviews. There are also two ways through Amazon itself to collect some reviews. One is called early reviewer program. So you can basically check off within Amazon that you are happy to give away some products. I think there's a limited number depending on the product, to people who want to submit a review, and those people are kind of pre-vetted by Amazon. Amazon knows that these people are fair based on whatever stats they collect, and you as a buyer may qualify for that too. So you may buy a product in order to submit a review, and if you submit a review, you get the refund from Amazon. So they basically created that system that sellers have been doing for a while, legalized it, and they know that these buyers, that these customers of Amazon are fair when they submit those
Mm-hmm.
reviews. So that's one. And there's another program called Wine, and Wine is very similar. I don't even remember what the main difference is, but with Wine, you can, I think, have like a few more reviews. So that way you can collect probably extra 10 to 20 reviews or so, usually from my experience, that have that extra mark that it's kind of confirmed by Amazon that these reviews are fair. So that helps too. I would definitely recommend doing that in the beginning because reviews matter a lot.
So it's like if it's interesting. I never heard about those two. So it's like an inside system built in Amazon for kind of to improve the reviewing capabilities for brands. Is that correct? My understanding is correct.
Pretty much. Yeah,
Cool.
Amazon recognized it that it's hard to launch something if it's a new product. How do you collect reviews? And since they noticed that there's a trend that brands are incentivizing reviews, which is against terms of service,
Mm-hmm.
they're like, okay, how do we make them, like, how do we give them what they need
Mm-hmm.
by making it legal and
Got,
benefit from it because you pay Amazon for that.
yeah, for sure. Gotcha. Yeah, Amazon loves to make money, don't they? Yeah.
Everybody does.
And in terms of channels, right? So, what are the main sales drivers? So, I would assume it is Amazon itself because people start searching on Amazon, and it's pretty clear. The search intent is pretty clear. They're looking to buy something, right? But in terms of while you're building the brand, SEO and paid ads, how did they play? I guess you had some sort of like internal Amazon tracking system where you see how people are landing on your products and how they interact with your products. So do you know the breakdown? What was the breakdown of organic search on Amazon and paid ads?
It all depends case by case. So it's Amazon is definitely a keywords game, and there are methods to research products, basically simply looking on keywords only. Um, and yeah, there are ways to export some reports. There are business reports within the Amazon Seller Central that you can export, and you can look at conversion, you can look at number of sessions and stuff like that. So it gives you a good idea of which products perform best, which variations perform best, which of your own basically, which. But yeah, when you export some reports on PPC, so Amazon pay-per-click, you can see which keywords work best. But most of these reports are not very user-friendly. So what I usually use is a tool like Helium 10, the one that I mentioned for product research, to export some information on the keywords. I can also export some basic information from my competition, for example, and compare my keyword performance to them, how I index, how I rank compared to others in my category. So I can, let's say, pick top 5 and put myself right next to them and see how well I perform in certain keywords. And there's some keywords that you just kind of have to target, even though they may be super competitive, but they give you the most ranking juice. And there are some underutilized opportunities. Always, you can find some long tail keywords that you better qualify for because they're the most profitable, basically. So looking at all of the data from Helium 10 and from Amazon reports, you can decide how to adjust your pay-per-click and how to optimize your listing. Because, for example, title matters a lot. What keywords you put in the title of your listing determines how well you index and rank for those keywords. Same with bullet points and description. So you can look at both your Amazon reports and something like Helium 10 that gives you your competitive edge, where you do well, where you would need improvements, and based on that, you can put in the right keywords on the front end and also on the back end. Something I forgot to mention, there's also a way to put some keywords on the back end of the listing. So basically, like misspellings and any other relevant keywords that just don't fit in the context of the listing, or maybe not as relevant to describe the product, but are relevant. You can also put them back on the back of the listing, so it indexes for them.
Gotcha. Well, actually, you stole my next question about optimizing the actually product listing, and I just want to talk about the parts that you can touch and optimize. I think it's called in Amazon A+ content. Correct me if I'm wrong. So, how does it look like from your perspective, from a person who optimizes it? Like you log into that system, because I myself never done it before, but I kind of know the idea how it's done based on like what I do in SEO world, like kind of similar stuff of optimizing images, title tags, meta descriptions, headings. So did you do it yourself? And what are the main parts that you need to optimize, and how would you optimize them?
Yeah, so keywords is one part of ways, like one way of optimizing the listing, one part of the game, and the other important thing that some sellers miss is the visual appeal. And obviously, with products you buy online, you can't touch them, you can't smell them, you can't try them on. You have to trust that it's good for you based on the visuals you see, right? Whether it's image or video, and Amazon does give you opportunity to show your products in the best possible way. They do have some requirements. For example, the main image only has to be white background and stuff like that. And like you're limited by the number of images, like it's 10 images. But I feel like they still give you enough tools to showcase your product in the best possible way, to talk about your benefits, all the features, right? And one of the things that you can stand out with is what you mentioned that's called A plus content. It used to be called EBC, enhanced brand content. And those extra visual features are only available for brand registered brands. So for you to be brand registered, you have to own the trademark. So in my case, I had to file a trademark for travelization that I owned up until recently, and I had to transfer it with the business because that's one of the assets. So when you own a trademark, you can apply for brand registry with Amazon. There's also some way to streamline that process because usually it takes like four to 6 months if you do it within the US system. But if you want to get it done sooner, Amazon pre-vetted some IP lawyers, and you can go through them, and Amazon just knows if they do it, it's going to be approved in the future. So within a couple of weeks of you going through that pre-vetted resource, you have the brand registry done right away. So if you need to fast forward that process, you pay a little extra, you can get it done sooner. And once you have that brand registry, then you can do stuff like A plus content, a store, like storefront on Amazon. For me, it was like amazon.com/travelization, and you could see all of my products. It looks pretty nice, just like a website, good landing page, with different sections of your products, different images and stuff like that. So yeah, they're always improving that, which I do appreciate as a brand builder. You can make your brand stand out in many ways, and A plus content is basically an extra section in your listing. Instead of having a written description just in text describing the product, the use, and all the features and benefits, all the dimensions, you can make it visual. You can show it the way you would show it on your website, basically. So you can show people using it. You can talk about benefits of your specific variation, for example. So graphic design is very important there. Hiring someone who knows how to do it is important. In my case, I hired photographers, but I put it all together myself. I did have basic knowledge, Photoshop, Illustrator, so programs like that. So that helps. But images themselves, I did hire someone to take really nice professional pictures.
Got it. Yeah, thanks for such an extended answer. And now, is my understanding correct? So if you don't like register your brand with a trademark, you're not able to alter your listings and to update those titles and descriptions. So how does it work if you don't register?
You can update your listing. You can update your title, images, like everything. Because listings, Amazon is built in a weird way. Listings don't belong to you. They're public domain. You can, if you have the same product, you can join as a seller, generally speaking, unless the one who owns the brand claims that they own it through Amazon, then they're more protected.
Okay.
And that's one of the challenges I had in the beginning. While I was waiting for the trademark approval and brand registry approval, somebody just jumped in as a seller claiming that they have the same product, which I know they don't, right? Because I'm the only one who created the product, and I know that my manufacturer doesn't sell it to anyone else, right? I own it. But because I didn't have that brand registry yet, somebody was able to say, hey, I actually do have the same product, so let me sell it. And Amazon doesn't even check
So
until
they
somebody complains.
basically started selling your product, and if you don't have that trademark registered, anyone can sell your product, right?
Right. And
Wow.
the thing is, even if they don't have my product to sell, they can still say that they do, and Amazon doesn't check it in advance. Amazon will only look at that case if people start buying and complaining about it. Oh, it doesn't meet the description. It doesn't look the same, That
Okay.
was my case. And Yeah, so I definitely encourage people who want to launch on Amazon to look at the brand registry as soon as possible because it does protect you. It doesn't mean that if you have the brand registry, nobody can jump in and compete on the buy box with you, but it's easy to remove them. You just file a simple form through Amazon system, and Amazon removes somebody else because you own the brand. You know whether they buy from you or not, stuff like that, right?
Got it. Well, that's convenient actually. Good for that they have this system built. And
Right.
yeah, I just want again, we're stuck a little bit with Amazon, but I think it's really important to go through the specifics. So how would you describe your personal relationship with Amazon? And again, talking numbers here, like about the commissions. And I think I didn't ask you this question. Did you use FBA? And yeah, basically your experience like with working with FBA, commissions, pluses, minuses, and what if there are any other options.
For sure. I think it's an important question. I personally have love-hate relationship with Amazon because I feel like it's the easiest platform to launch if you don't have very much marketing experience, like you're not that experienced with bringing your own traffic to your website. So Amazon is a great resource for cheap or even free traffic sometimes. There's a lot of organic traffic that you don't even have to pay for. Yet Amazon does two things that I don't like and most sellers don't like. One, they treat customers of Amazon as their own customers, not your brand customers. If somebody buys my map, in my case, or my frame, because it's not just maps, I have frames as well. So if somebody buys one of my products, it's not, in the eyes of Amazon, it's not my customer. So they don't share any data. For customers, they believe it's convenient because they protect their
Mhm.
privacy in a way. But for brand builders, it's quite a struggle because how do you retarget people? How do you serve them better? How do you collect that feedback from people? If somebody submits a review, for example, there's no way you can reach out to them. So
Yeah,
that's
right.
frustrating. And also the other thing is you're treated like how do I say this properly? You as a seller, you're not treated
Uh-huh.
well. Amazon doesn't really care that much about sellers. They say they do, but they really don't. I feel like
Some
their seller support,
revelation here.
yeah. So their seller support is like I feel like when they hire people for customer support, they put the best talent into customer support and the worst talent for seller support. It's
Mhm.
super hard to deal with Amazon. Virtually impossible to solve something within one call or one email. Even the simplest things. And very often, since they're heavily AI based, their AI mechanism makes some assumptions, makes some decisions on your behalf, obviously. They can
Mhm.
suspend your listing, they can change something in your listing, and you don't know why, you don't understand, and you're trying to communicate it back saying, hey, you did some changes for me, which you shouldn't have done, and here's why. And it's very clear, it's very clean in your opinion, like you're explaining everything properly, and it takes forever to them to fix it because it's done automatically by the big machine, right?
Mhm.
So those things are frustrating. Positives, though, as I said, if you don't have that much experience bringing your own traffic to your own website, Amazon is easy. Like you just turn on automatic campaign, you have the ads on, right, in the beginning. And if you do launch something that's in demand, most likely you have some sales without you even knowing where they come from. So that's pretty cool. And if you don't break any rules of service, like terms of service on Amazon, you do everything by the book, it's a pretty stable and predictable business model. You can see the effects of every action you do. Like you can split test images, you can split test titles, you can improve your listing, for example, and you can see, okay, now I sell more. So it's easy to play with. Like it's a big game, in my opinion. You can game the system in ways. Sometimes people do it within the rules. Sometimes people do this outside of the rules of Amazon, but you kind of learn how it works eventually, and it makes it easy. It makes it like really like a game. Um,
That's a good
at the
way
same
to that's a
time,
good way to put it.
yeah, yeah, it's to me it's just a game. But if you're thinking about long-term brand building kind of activity, like you want to build a real brand, you want that to be valuable outside of Amazon, then I'd say don't focus only on that one platform. There are many other ones, and also there's a way to build your own website. And even if you only know Amazon in the beginning, I'd encourage you to build that brand outside of it and bring some traffic to your website, collect some emails, build that community on social media.
Right.
So if something does happen, and it will happen with Amazon, then you're not done. Like your business doesn't end one day. Because for some people it did. They were fully dependent on Amazon. I know them personally, and their business was suppressed for whatever reasons. Like they couldn't relaunch because they broke some rules. Sometimes they don't even know which rules. So it does become hard sometimes when you deal with Amazon.
Did you have actually? Did you have any mishaps with Amazon, like being your product delisted or anything like that, or it's just
Oh yeah,
that? Oh yeah. Oh, okay.
yeah.
So what was it, and how did you deal with it?
One was in November 2019, I believe. So December 2019 was the best months I've had before I sold the business. But November 2019, and it's Q4, so
It's
it's a
high
giftable
season.
product. It's high season. I need to be in stock. But in November, they just, I think it's called suspended. They suspended my two major variations, so my main listing. No explanation, just like generic copy paste thing that, oh, you must have broken one of these rules, and there's a huge list of rules I
Rules.
could have broken. So I go back to them saying, hey, can you please clarify what happened? Which rule did I break? I'm happy to fix this. Takes forever for them to respond. Another copy paste response, and like it's a never ending conversation. And November is huge. Like every day, I'm losing thousands of dollars in sales, right?
Wow.
So I had to hire someone who knew how to approach Amazon properly, which is weird that they built an entire ecosystem. There's some Amazon lawyers now, right? So I pay them, they reach out to Amazon through the right emails, explain the case, basically agreed that we broke some rules, which I to this day have no exact idea what was it. But I kind of guessed that it was me promising lifetime warranty to my customers. Again, Amazon treats them as their customers, and I still see some of my competition saying that they promise lifetime warranty, but somehow Amazon decided that my specific brand should not talk about it. I think, and the reason I assume that's the case is as soon as I changed one of the images that talked about it, and I changed one of the bullet points in the description that
Hmm.
I have that offering that I promise lifetime warranty, and submitted another email request to review my case. A day later, they did reinstate the listings, and I started selling again. But in 2 weeks that I was basically closed, I didn't exist. If you
Hmm.
go to my links, there's like this dog page. Amazon let us know what it is. It's just a dog saying, "Oops, there's no page like that." So that time was lost. Like no ranking, no sales history, nothing. And in high season, it's critical. So to me, it was quite an expensive hiccup on Amazon side. And again, they didn't even say this was the issue. They were like, "Oh, try to guess.
Well,
Fix one
that
of these
that that
things."
must be frustrating, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah. And again, as with SEO, like sorry to jumping in here, it's like kind of the same. We're not playing on our field, so basically we're
right.
super dependent on any algorithm updates, AI improvements, and basically changing the rules. Uh, but yeah, I'm happy to hear that your products were listed again and you sold it. Just out of curiosity, like maybe it will be useful for someone. How much will it cost to hire an Amazon lawyer? And yeah, just any rough idea. I mean, sure you know it.
Yeah,
Just
yeah. I think I paid $1,000 for that, but I think I got quite a deal actually. So usually it would probably cost more. And it also depends on the severity of situation. Sometimes sellers reach out to lawyers like that because their entire account was suspended. For example, they may have been giving away products in exchange for reviews, which is a big no-no. And if
hmm.
Amazon finds out somehow, and it's just
Oh,
as easy if one of the buyers reporting you, then your entire account can be suspended. You're pretty much done. And if your entire business is on Amazon, it's done. You
that's
know,
it. Yeah.
and you're willing to pay whatever you have left in your bank account to Amazon lawyers to reinstate it. And it doesn't always end up successfully, but it may. So these lawyers usually know which buttons to push to make it happen.
All right. Yeah. I kind of noticed we still have one question unanswered. So just to close it off with Amazon and all this. Stuff in
Mhm.
your relationship with that about the commissions and FBA. How
All
like
right.
what are the commissions and how did FBA work out for you? And are there any other alternatives that you might have
Right.
used to support your business?
Yeah, so first I'll explain what FBA is. FBA it stands for Fulfillment by Amazon. So if you use FBA, which I think made Amazon a big thing in the first place, then all you need to do as a business owner is send inventory to Amazon warehouses, wherever it's coming from. In my case, it was Ukraine and China, frames from China, maps from Ukraine. So let's say if you ship stuff from China, your job is to send the right quantity of units uh, to Amazon warehouses. From
Mm-hmm.
there, as soon as somebody buys from your listings, Amazon takes care of fulfillment. So they deliver it to the door of your customer. So that's called fulfillment by Amazon. And you pay for that, and you also pay for the ability to sell on the Amazon marketplace. So there are two charges, and they like it's pretty complicated to calculate. It's not like, oh, it's 15% for everybody or 30% for everybody. It all depends on specific category, specific sizes, both
Mm-hmm.
weight and dimension. They have a very complicated spreadsheet that I don't even look at. I know that with this product I pay this much. That's all I care about. And they have this FBA calculator. So if you're curious what it's gonna be, you can just go to Google FBA calculator, find that link, and there's such a thing you need to fill out ASIN. ASIN is basically a unique code for every product. So find one of the products on Amazon that's the most similar to what you're trying to sell, put it into that FBA calculator, put in the price that you tend to sell it for, and the cost of goods and everything, and that FBA calculator will tell you how much you'll be paying in the FBA fee and Amazon selling fee. And you'll know what your margin is, so you kind of have that calculator to plan in advance if you need to. So in my case, I think because the tube was pretty large, like it's a long map, it's an extra large size. I think it was like 25 inches long. Because of that thing, it was considered to be I don't remember the name of the tier, but like oversize of a kind. There are lots of different tiers there. So they charged me about $14 to $15 in total in all the fees I paid to Amazon. And the price point, which also affects the calculation, was $30 for that map. So from $30, half of that goes to Amazon basically, in my case. Sometimes you can sell something very small. Obviously, you'll pay less for all the fulfillment fees, storage fees. So in that case, it may cost $30. You'll be paying $8 in total fees, you know? So it all depends on what exactly you're selling. But I feel like it's worth it because if I compare it to some 3PL services or third-party logistics services that
Mm-hmm.
can do the other way of fulfillment, fulfilled by merchant, FBM, then they usually charge a little more than Amazon would. So
Okay,
they're
so
probably the cheapest.
are you saying Amazon is still like the go-to because it's cheaper and it's actually fulfilled by Amazon?
If you sell on Amazon, yes, you want to use FBA. And another reason for that is marketing side of things. So if you do FBM, you qualify for Prime, Amazon Prime. And Amazon prioritizes listings that qualify for Prime. So even in the search results, you show up higher if you do sign up for FBM. So if you sell on Amazon, definitely take advantage of that. It's cheaper. It can be confusing. Sometimes Amazon loses your inventory. There are all kinds of things that can go wrong. But overall, I think the value is there. It's worth using FBA.
Gotcha. Well, I think now we conclude the Amazon part. I just want to go back a little bit in terms of learning curve. So I think it's going to be really useful for someone who listens to us. So let's create a small case study right off the bat. So
Sure.
you're the expert of Amazon business, and yeah, like from the beginning to the end. Like if someone doesn't have a person to talk to or like any friends like doing that business, where would you go to learn? I'm sure like you can Google a lot, but maybe you know any specific good websites that cover everything from like where to start, how to select a niche, and where you can kind of read, learn, watch YouTube videos, whatever, and
Right.
gain that necessary knowledge.
Yeah, quite a big question because I feel like it depends on your personality. Some people like figuring out things themselves and make their own mistakes. Some people enjoy being within a structure and following somebody's footsteps to do whatever's proven to be working. I did a little bit of both. When I did start, as I mentioned, I had someone I could ask questions, but it wasn't like talking to them every day. It was like maybe once every couple of weeks. So most of the things I was still researching myself through the means of YouTube and Google and Facebook groups. I feel like Facebook groups are pretty helpful, specifically for Amazon sellers. But if you want to just get a course and follow the step-by-step system that someone's built for you. There's so many of these courses, and I'm fairly well connected in the space, so I know some people personally, and I know whether they are BS or they know what they're doing and what they're talking about. So feel free to reach out to me to ask for recommendations there, but I wouldn't like to put some names out there right here because it might be unfair. There's so many people I know, and I feel like it's also important to find the right fit. If you're looking for a course, it has to be the personality fit, someone you enjoy learning from. So yeah, if somebody needs, feel free to ask me. I'm happy to connect with those people and send you links to those courses.
For
But
sure.
if you don't want to pay for a course, all the information is out there. You can find it, like let's say on YouTube, right? It may not be as structured, but you can still put the puzzle together if you have extra time and you're willing to put the extra efforts. But yeah, generally speaking, those tools that I mentioned, like there's Fire Launch, Helium 10, I think the other one is Jungle Scout, and there are so many other ones that are a little smaller in their market cap that will do product research. Like they will extract product research numbers for you, so you can estimate the opportunity that way. And also Facebook groups. If you join, you ask questions from time to time. There are lots of Amazon FBA related entrepreneurship groups. I have one. It's more like general entrepreneurship groups and not only for Amazon sellers, but most of them are because most of my friends are e-commerce entrepreneurs. So yeah, both ways work.
Got it. Yeah, I think it's fair to say, yeah, it depends. If you want to pay for a course, definitely you can find a course. If you want to spend a little bit more time and figure it out yourself and, connect all the dots by yourself, it's all there. So yeah, just shoot us a message or just go ahead and Google it if you want to learn more. We'll be sure to help. And yeah, as I said, a little quick case study, it doesn't need to be super complicated, just roughly. Like if a person wants to create a sweatshop, let's say with printed cats, different types of cats, and we want to order 1,000 sweatshops from China or Ukraine. Again, what would be, rough estimation of doing that? And again, just go in this cycle, like step 1, step 2, step 3.
Right. Well, first of all, I should mention there's such a thing called Amazon Merch, I believe. So with Amazon Merch, you can print on demand through the means of Amazon. So all you need to do is upload a design. I know they do hoodies, they do t-shirts, maybe some other things, maybe hats. So basically, if you have that unique design, you own it, you can create a listing without having the actual goods. And if somebody orders, at that point, Amazon prints it on whatever standard stock they have and ships it to the customer. Some people make money that way. I never tried it. That's why I don't even know if it's merch by Amazon. I think it's Amazon Merch. So if you Google, you'll find it. But if you do have something unique, let's say it has that unique design of the sweatshirt itself, you just want it to be a regular product, just like a water bottle. First of all, I would use one of these tools that I mentioned. So for example, Helium 10, you open that web app or you just use it when you go to Amazon. So you go to Amazon, you search for the right keyword that would describe your product in the closest possible way, and you look at the opportunity. And there you can see how big demand there is. So you can see how much in sales the entire page one has made in the last 30 days, for example. Then you're like, okay, it's quite a big pie. If I have 1% of this, I'll be happy. Even if I don't do well, it's okay-ish. Because sometimes you look at it, you're like, oh, it's 100K. Everybody who sells on page one in total sells 100K. So on average, one product sells for like $1,000 a month. In my opinion, it's not worth my time. So I try to look for opportunities where there's at least 1 million. So that's one thing that I look at. And then also I look at reviews. If they have a lot of reviews, then it's harder to launch because eventually it matters. People look at social proof. If somebody has 10,000 reviews and you have one, even if yours looks a little better and there's something you believe is better about the product, it's hard to convince people to go with something so new, so fresh, and so unconfirmed by the general public that it's worth their risk, right? So I'd say, look at the competitiveness, look at the demand, look at margins too. So use that FBA calculator that I mentioned, and look at the closest product you see that looks very similar to yours on Amazon to calculate whether there's margin. If you see that the margin is at least a 30%, that's at least my target, then it's probably worth trying. I try to look for like 40% or more ideally, because there's so many unforeseen expenses with physical product businesses, storage fees, shipping fees. Something goes wrong with whatever, shipping delayed, you ship air because you need to rush it in, then there's an extra expense. Also quality inspection service, another expense. Maybe you need to launch a little more aggressively because by the time you launch, somebody else launched and it's more competition now, you know? So I would say the higher the margin, the safer it is for you to make it work. What else I would look at? Oh, sometimes you can find really good ideas outside of Amazon. So if you're looking at something design impacted, so design matters in the product, those niches I really like working with. Maybe because I'm fairly confident with the ability of creating a better design, but I think it's a great differentiation. And you can split test your product design in advance to creating it and launching it. That's what I'm trying to do every time I either launch or consult someone on their products. So I would go to places like, if it's a home decor item, I'd go to Pinterest or Etsy. Or if it can be handmade, Etsy is a great resource overall. Doesn't only have to be home decor. And I look at products that people like there. So whether it's a lot of reviews or on Pinterest, it's a lot of pins. I'm like, oh, I found something very often that is popular on those platforms, and there's nothing like that on Amazon. So to me, it's already a proof of concept. I can launch it, and there's very high likelihood that people will enjoy that design. They'll buy it from me. Even if I have 5 reviews, somebody else has 500 reviews, my design may be so much better that people wouldn't mind having that little social proof, right? Or there's another resource that I like that's called Pickfu. I think it's Pick. I think it's .fu. So Pickfu, if you just Google Pickfu product feedback, I think you'll be able to find it. So what you can do there is it's a paid platform. So let's say you have 3 product design options. You upload 3 images. If price differs based on the design, you can also add that price point, and you can simply ask your target audience. You pre-select that audience, let's say the age, the income, the interests, and you ask these people, which one would you buy and why? And then they vote, and some of them leave the comment to explain why, and that can give you a really good idea. Because if you just based all your decisions on your subjective opinion, from my experience, it doesn't always end well. You
Fair
can't
enough.
really
Fair
guess what
enough.
market needs.
Fair enough.
So
Yeah.
that would be my overall approach to product research right now. There's some things to research, like there are some ways to research it through keyword research, like looking specifically on keyword opportunity, how competitive they are, because that's pretty much the currency. If you find keywords that are underutilized, like there's a lot of research, not that much offering, you can find some good opportunities that way, but it's a little more complicated. It's hard to explain it in one statement here.
Got it. Yeah, obviously, it's just a rough idea of how to start a product on Amazon and where should you be looking at. And thanks for diving deeper and trying to decipher it once again. And yeah,
For sure.
last but not least, now we've come full circle. And yeah, can you tell us how you decide to sell your business and how did the process look like? And is it a completely different endeavor? And what kind of problems did you encounter during that time?
Yeah, it's a completely separate project, and it may take a lot of time and energy, and it certainly did in my case. I just used a business broker, and I find their service to be worth the money, and usually they charge around 10 to 15%, sometimes less depending on the size of the business. So it's always a prorated system. So let's say if your business is like a $10 million business, then what they charge is much lower. And it's important to find the right broker, in my opinion, too. Like I started with one, and then I had to switch to another one to get what I needed for the business. In my case, the first broker I dealt with, and they also give you a lot of advice. It's not like they only list it, just like in real estate world. And if it sells, it sells. If it doesn't, they don't care. They help you position that business in the best possible way, for sure. Your books have to be in order. They explain you what exactly needs to be done. They can connect with a bookkeeper who can do it for you in the right way. So I did hire a bookkeeper because my books were not in order at the time of me deciding to sell it. And it probably took me close to a year from the time I decided I'm going to sell the business to the time I sold it. Not because it was hard, but because there's a lot of preparation you need to do. And one of them is putting your books in order. So my first broker did get me some deals, but what I didn't like about their process is as soon as your business has an offer or only in a letter of intent, so LOI they call it. As soon as you have a letter of intent, and as soon as you sign it that you're fine with that intent, right, to buy, then you're off the market, and nobody else can submit bids, nobody else can offer you anything else that you already have. So you're kind of tied to that buyer. You work with them through the due diligence process, and usually it takes around a month for the size of my business, sometimes more. With one of the interested parties, it took me close to 2 months of due diligence. So every day there's back and forth of them asking questions, checking your numbers, checking your Amazon store, trying to find like every little detail about the business just to see if there's no grand misrepresentation, whether it's really going to continue the growth and stuff like that. And very often after that extensive due diligence process, they come back with a lower number. They're like, oh, we found this thing, it's concerning.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're willing to offer you less. I've never heard of anyone coming back after the due diligence process offering you more. So they always try to make the deal sweeter for them. And imagine yourself being in that position like 1.5, 2 months later, uh, you're still stuck with the same potential buyer, and now they're offering you less. And in my case, it was always like every month the business was growing. So every month, if I were to list it later, it would be valued higher because of the sales were going up. I think pandemic worked in my advantage. So you're looking at a much stronger business now, and you offered less money for it, you know. So I decided eventually after those 2 attempts with 2 potential buyers with that first broker not to sell it for them. And also another reason was if I were to sell through that broker, they charge 10% flat on both business and inventory, which I felt like it's unfair that I'm losing 10% on any inventory I still have left. And you always have some inventory left with the physical products business. And when you're in that process of selling, you're always second guessing whether you should order more products to ensure you're not out of stock. What if this deal doesn't go through? Then you'll have a problem because going out of
Right.
stock is a big no-no. You don't want to go out of stock. But if you're like ordering more and you know that you're losing 10% of this money, I don't know, it just feels not right. So the other broker I decided to go with does charge a little more. They charge 15%, but only on the business sale. And I feel like they also have a much bigger reach. Like overall, they're more famous. I think they have a bigger pool of buyers that they also pre-vet. So they check their funds. They make sure they can actually afford to buy those businesses, and they don't show them businesses they cannot afford to buy. So whenever you have that interview with somebody, those people are really ready to buy. It's not like they're just shopping around and trying to offer you 1/10 of what you're trying to sell the business for, right? And yeah, but in that case, they don't charge for inventory. That other broker only charges you on the business sale, which is very good for businesses like mine. In Q4, I had over 130K sitting in inventory, so it would make a big difference if they charged something from the cost of inventory.
Actually, talking about the brokers, you said you found them. So where did you find them, and what was the process? Is it easy to find those brokers and to switch them? And you said with one broker that when you had your LOI, letter of intent, nobody else could see your listing. Was it listed
Right.
somewhere? What was the
Yeah. So these brokers
platform?
are online platforms, right? Just like a marketplace, basically. There are lots of them. I worked with 2 personally, so I can give some feedback if someone's interested. I don't want to put some names out there, but I can connect with my broker. It's you can Google like buy and sell business online. You'll find a lot of them. I'm sure they try to index for those keywords in the Google search engine. But I found the one I sold my business with through personal recommendations. And that I think that was a good decision because I could talk to the person and learn what are the pros and cons, and not from the actual broker because they would always say only the good things, but from someone who experienced working with them, right? So I found that method to be a smart way to look for brokers. You can also sell it privately. Sometimes you can reach out to a company that's like a private equity firm. They always buy businesses, so you can even look for those and go direct and not have that commission at all. But then you're kind of stuck with one buyer anyways. What I liked about my selling process was the multiple bid situation. So there were a few people interested in the business, and eventually there were two people competing against each other, which bumped the price a little higher, which I think is very healthy if you're trying to get the most for your business. And if you go straight to a private equity firm, that's their sole business, buying online businesses or Amazon FBA businesses specifically, then you can't really negotiate that much because you don't offer it to anybody else, basically, right? Yeah, these are my thoughts.
So you're kind of narrowing your pool. Yeah, makes sense. So just to sum it all up, you found brokers on the sort of marketplace, and anyone can find them by just doing some simple Google searches for those
Yeah,
specific
I
keywords.
found them through personal contacts, but if you if you use Google to find them, you can find a lot of online business brokers. And another positive thing about using brokers, I think, is very often they have, at least my broker has a very proven step-by-step system that kind of eliminates most of the risks when you're buying or selling a business. So for example, for a buyer, they have this inspection period. So after they send all of the money to the brokerage, it's 100% already. Only then your listing's off the market.
Okay.
Before other people can still look at it, send you offers and stuff like that. So only when they send the entire payment, only then I think it's then sold.
Your
Before they
listing
sell,
goes out of the grid, right? So once they...
people can still find it if they search for it, but
Mhm.
it's marked as sold, right?
Okay.
So at that point, you're entering into that inspection period. I think it's 14 days. And that inspection period is to protect buyers. They can look through all the information you have on the business, and it's already in a migration period. So you transfer all the access, you kind of transfer operations completely to them, but they can't change anything. So you still run the business. But in that period, if they find a grand misrepresentation, they can still walk away from the deal. If they find something that wasn't shown by you as a seller of the business previously in the documentation you provided, that affects the performance of the business, or let's say the profits are not there, they can still, having that reason, they can still walk away. So that protects them. And also, what's nice for you, what can protect you as a seller, if a deal is pretty big. Mine was considered, I'd say, maybe an average or a smaller, I'd say. So it was all cash upfront. But very often, if the deal is pretty big, then you have some kind of profit sharing built in after you transfer the business. Like one of my buddies sold his business for a few million, and he has a decent salary for the next 2 years from the buyer because they're interested in buying businesses that would perform well, and he's also kind of motivated to support them. Not that it's part of the agreement, but obviously you're in touch with them and you can give them some suggestions, connect them with the right people to keep profits high. So it's a
Interesting.
win-win, right?
I've heard about that model, and you said it's not included in the deal, but what would make him work for the buyer to, to get those numbers if you got already all the cash? Wouldn't it be discounted if you don't hit, for instance, the target, and it will be discounted on the first price that your business was listed? For instance, the buyers bought a business for $1 million, and with this model, he gave only 500,000, and then you work 2 years to kind of get those 500,000 by keeping the promise of getting the sales numbers at certain level.
Right. In short, there are all kinds of deals, and it can get very creative. No one's really limiting you, but there's some templates that brokers use because they know it's proven to be working, right? So in my case, it didn't make sense because it's a fairly simple business to operate, and it's a fairly small business. So if someone's offering me, okay, I'll give you half of what you want, and then we'll pay out the rest in the next 3 years. When somebody else comes in saying, "Oh, I'll give you 10% more than what you want, all cash up front," then I have an option to choose somebody who's offering a better deal for me, right? But if a business is like a 10 million business, usually the pool of candidates to buy is much smaller, and that's when you end up negotiating stuff like that. So you can have, like, let's say they can ask you to remain on board and be involved in the business operations because you know how to run it. And in the meantime, their team would learn from you and slowly transition to run the business without you. Very often it's the case if it's a large business. Sometimes, just like one of my friends had that deal, he's not involved at all, but he has a little bit of profit share built in. I don't know what the percentage is exactly, but he'll be getting payments quarterly, I believe, for the next 2 years, as long as the business is performing well. So whether it's stable, not much changes, or it's growing, or it's declining, he's still getting that share. So obviously, he has that intrinsic motivation to support them and make sure
Right.
it's growing. Because he's not really doing much. He can just give them some advice, some suggestions to make sure he gets paid more, right? So that's nice. I like that. But usually it's for bigger businesses. So what I was going to say, brokers usually have those templates built in, and they have API connection to your seller account. So if you transfer the seller account to the new owner cannot say, oh, it's actually not doing well. I'm not going to pay anything else. Whatever we agreed on for the later payments, it's not going to happen. If that's the case and the broker sees that it's unfair because they have the information there, they'll make the buyer legally pay for whatever he committed to pay, right? So you
Okay.
as a seller is protected that way as well. So I think that there are some benefits to use a broker who's experienced and they have some systems in place like that.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a very extensive answer, and I'm sure it's going to be useful for someone to know that there's a lot of flexibility. How can you structure a deal? And yeah.
Yeah.
So now we're entering this like small, quick questionnaire that I call Digital Acumen Blitz. I will ask a short question, but your answer shouldn't be necessarily short. So the first one would be, are you ready?
Yes.
FBA or dropshipping?
FBA.
Better quality products or higher ad spend?
Better quality products.
Alibaba
And
or
I'll
DH?
expand on that one.
Okay. If you want to, yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people look at this business more like a short-term endeavor. So like, oh, I can find a cheaper product, so my margin is going to be higher. I'm gonna do that. But what they often miss is it's not just algorithms they work with. And I feel like I'm one of the examples of people who are not maybe the most tech savvy, but what I think I've done well is branding and building that community. And relationships will always beat algorithms. If you have good relationships, people trust you, the brand is strong, and one of the things that you stand out with a physical product is quality, then overall I feel like you're aiming for higher returns and bigger payday if you sell the business than you would have just by looking at saving costs. So in my case, my product was probably the most expensive, not only on Amazon, but overall in the world. One of the most expensive scratch of maps, if not the most expensive scratch of map. Same with poster frames. They were one of the most expensive ones, but I could justify the higher price. And let's say if my competition was selling it for $10 to $12, same keywords, but different results, different product. I was selling for like 30, 32 in December, even 34. So people were still paying extra. And the reason for that, and that kind of allowed me to have healthy margins, is I did go above and beyond in quality, in customer care, in overall customer experience, how much extra value I was given outside of the product itself. Um, yeah, like I feel like long term it makes more sense to aim for the quality, aim for the difference. Because if you only compete on the price, it's a very short-term game. Someone else will be able to come in and offer a lower price, especially if you're competing on a platform like Amazon. There's a lot of Chinese sellers, and who do you think is going to be able to make a product for cheaper, you
Yeah,
or
for sure.
direct manufacturer,
For
right?
sure.
Yeah, so brand building is the way to go, and that's why I said FBA, not drop shipping, because FBA you probably refer to like building a brand and having your own fulfillment. Uh, Drop shipping to me is not a proper, like not a long-term business model.
Got it.
You're always looking for opportunities, changes all the time. But when you're building a brand, every day you can make it a little stronger, a little better, collect a little more social proof, and eventually you're like, oh, I actually have an asset that everybody wants.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's question number 3. I know it's a big wag, but still, Alibaba or DHgate?
What's DHgate?
Oh, it's good. So Alibaba, it's an. I think there's this another wholesaler, or I mean supplier, where you can order stuff. So we didn't talk a lot about Chinese suppliers, but I think Alibaba
Right.
is one of the biggest ones. I think DHgate is number 3 or something. But yeah.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of global sources, but I personally only used Alibaba to find suppliers in China. Um, well, yeah, just because I have experience with Alibaba, I'd say Alibaba. The positives there, you have um, Alibaba trade assurance. So as long as your communication happens within the Alibaba platform, and your expectations are very clear, you have that spec sheet provided to the manufacturer. If something does go wrong, you're protected. Even if you paid 100% for the order, if it arrives and there's a problem, you can always file a claim, and Alibaba will protect you as a customer in a way. So most likely we'll get the refund. So yeah, I'm familiar with that process. I'm familiar with their platform. That's why I would say Alibaba. But at the same time, um, I feel like there's a lot of competition coming to that space. One of my buddies is actually working on an IT project that's going to potentially overtake Alibaba and be a global solution.
Hopefully.
So hopefully, once it's ready, I think it's going to be a much better overall experience for online entrepreneurs who deal with physical products.
Perfect. Sure, it's when it's done. Uh,
Yeah, will do.
Amazon US or Amazon Canada UK marketplace.
I'd start with US for most cases.
So
The reason being is just a
bigger
much
market.
bigger, yeah, exactly, much bigger market. Like if you compare my specific products, I was selling for like 2 to 4 units a day on average in Canada versus like 25 to 45 a day in the US for the same products. And also, what's nice with Amazon, if you want to sell in North America, once you start selling on the US marketplace, Amazon.com, you can agree to have um, what they call NARF, North American Remote Fulfillment, which is basically allowing Amazon to fulfill to Canada and Mexico. And what they do is they replicate your listing. They translate it to Spanish in Mexico. I think they translate it to French in Quebec in Canada. But basically, someone in Canada and Mexico can also find your product because your listing is just copied there. And if they do buy there, they have the right expectations. It's not going to be like 2-day delivery anymore, but they can buy still from you. And Amazon will fulfill from the United States. And for you, it's completely hands off. You don't need to send any inventory to Canada or Mexico. It's just in the US. So it makes it easy to take advantage of the entire North American marketplace.
And the last one, a little bit personal, but stable salary or jumpy earnings while being an entrepreneur?
Being an entrepreneur, yeah, just because I like the freedom. I like controlling my own income.
Good. And the last one I just wanted to ask you, so what's up next? What are the plans for the future? Do you have any other projects down the pipeline? Well, what are you doing now, and what are the future plans, if you don't mind sharing?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm pretty public. I share everything I'm working on. I'm looking for the next opportunity, and it's probably going to be a much longer term opportunity. So not something I'm looking to sell in a couple years, but something I want to scale as much as I possibly can. So I'm potentially looking at more competitive niches. So I do want to remain in e-commerce. I do want to launch another brand because to me it's the most fun. I enjoy building something from the ground up. But at the same time, I found a lot of people reach out to me for some advice. Some that just think of Amazon as a good idea to start that business. For them, I'm probably not the best resource, just because it's like I feel like my skill set is just best for scaling. Once you're like, okay, I have this brand, I have this, let's say 1, 2, 3 products. I want to scale it, make it a much bigger brand, and potentially exit, or at least build it in a way that it's easy to exit, so it's even attractive to me to hold that
Okay.
business. So that's where I see my value, and I have a couple of people who work on scaling that I coach personally, and I also talk to people for free when they're ready to sell the business, so they think they should sell it soon, like within a year or two. Then I'm happy to advise, share my experience, steer them in the right direction, help them optimize it. That's just me paying back, basically. I don't charge for that, and it's not like I'm doing this every day. It's like once a week usually. Somebody reaches out, and I'm happy to help them because I was in their position and I benefited greatly from other people just because they kind of liked me. So definitely willing to help there.
That's very
Yeah,
nice of
that's
you.
about it.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you today, Andrii, and making it to the episode number 2 of the Moments in Marketing podcast. Appreciate for taking time to share your experience of building your brand and business. Now, our guest offered you a gift, and if you'd like to enter the draw, please like and share this episode and tell us about your experience in e-commerce. It could be actually anything. Build a personal store, dropshipping business, or you're starting a new one and stuck somewhere. Please send me a question or share your unique story, and we'll pick up 2 winners, and you'll have 2 30-minute sessions where you can ask Andri any questions. Is it right, Andri?
It is right. Yes, willing to pay back for sure. Thank you, Dima. Thanks for having me.
Perfect. Yeah. Also, Andri, if you want to share any useful educational links with me, I'll make sure to link that up in the description. And thanks again. And yeah, it was a really pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you, Dima. Yeah, for anyone who wants to see what I'm up to and use any resources I recommend or even talk to me, the easiest way is just to go to andrisadlak.com. That's where I kind of summarize everything you may expect from me. So Andri is Andri, and then last name Sadlak.com. It'll bring you to everything I have to share.
Perfect. And that does it for today. Hope you liked an episode, and if you have any additional questions for me or our guest, please do not hesitate to reach out. You can find me on LinkedIn or Facebook. Simply Google my first and last name and you should be able to see profile links. If you liked an episode, please do subscribe to the Moments in Marketing podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or any other platform of your choice. It's also available on SoundCloud and YouTube. Stay curious.